This is the review score. This is a heavy contender for my game of the year in February. This is Monster Hunter Wilds. If you were to ask me to give you my top 5 games, it would be an ephemeral list that would shift and sway every single time the question was raised. Games would come into focus and then fade back into the noise. There would be consistency at the spine of the list. There would be key games that remain but change position, but some of them would just come and go as they please. The Monster Hunter franchise, in all of its glory, would occupy one of those slots every single time. I'm a simple meat puppet with simple desires. You give me a crafting system in your game and you'll have my curiosity. But put big bosses in your game that I get to hunt down, carve up, and wear as a trophy like Predator with anger management issues? Then you have my attention. I actually bounced off Monster Hunter pretty hard when I was first introduced to it. But that's not Monster Hunter's fault. It was the person explaining it to me. It wasn't until Monster Hunter 4U that I actually swang back in and it all clicked. Now, I'm by no means a master at these games. There's a lot of nitty-gritty details in Monster Hunter to sink your teeth into, and the recent additions to the series with World, Rise, and now Wilds have done wonders for lowering the barrier of entry for new players. Wilds takes big strides towards reducing friction and bounce off. You see, there was a moment early on in the campaign when I was supported by 3 NPC hunters and fighting a gorgeously deadly looking insect that resembled a sentient rose with murder tendencies, that I had this crystallizing moment. Even though I was free to enjoy the game how I wanted, without the pressures of other players while I learned a new weapon, the game was actually creating the illusion of community. If you're a new player, then it's easing you into the idea of playing with others, and how this game actually works at the higher end, helping and being helped. Community is one of the core pillars of Monster Hunter as a series. You can go back to portable consoles and meetups, sitting on beanbags and trading guild cards and quests. Technology of today has only allowed Monster Hunter to soar to even greater height. It's able to perfectly take advantage of the connected nature of the world we live in, and it works as a spectacle fighter when showing off in small clips, like TikTok or anything else. It's actually such a fascinating aspect that we've made a whole video on it, the virality of community. I'm not sure when that will be out, but I'll post it here when it is, so check it out. You see, Wilds continues the path laid out by World when it comes to reducing friction for new and old players alike, for better or worse. I'm not personally against any of the ideas that are being brought to the table, but I understand that to some diehard, those friction points, intentionally or unintentionally, add difficulty. The potion change in World is a key example of this. You see, prior to World, you needed to stand still to drink. It was a risk. World allowed you to move while drinking. It's a fantastic change, but it also lowers that risk. Rise then added Palamute dog mounts that allowed for quick traversal around the map. They also allowed you to keep your distance while doing key actions, so there was less danger. Wilds now goes one step further. It sees you accompanied on your slaughter safari by a non-union equivalent chocobo. The Secret. It's a utility belt on leg. It carries supply items for you to restock with. Key items like first aid meds as an example. It holds a second weapon for you to quick swap without having to go back and change all of your stuff. It's got quick traversal around the map. It even has GPS to automatically take you where you need to go for your quest. And that is a direct result of the feedback from World. New players were getting lost in traversing around the map. That's a really nice touch. On the flip side, it serves as a oh no button. If you get knocked on your ass, you can very quickly just tap a button to remove yourself from danger as your secret runs in and picks you up. And because it's removing you from danger, by nature of the situation, It's lowering risk. But that's the trick with Monster Hunter though. As a faceless void once said,
"Foreseen is forearmed."
using the monster guide to know the weak points and weaknesses of your target is going to lower that risk. It's going to increase your odds of success no matter what you choose to fight. And there are some solid options in Wilds to go toe-to-toe with. I'm not going to discuss the total number of monsters because I'm not allowed. It's not going to matter. The number's going to increase pretty much straight away. We already know, as an example, that everyone's favorite bubbly boy Mizitsune is sliding their way in post-launch, so number go up. Everyone has their go-to picks as well, so it's going to come down to personal taste with how you feel about this roster. The roster could be 5 monsters, but if they're your 5 favorites, then you're set. I'm not going to blow smoke when it comes to this roster. I'll say that I'm a fan because it has Nasilla and Gore Magala. Those are my 2 tops. So me, I'm happy. Hopefully you are too. Especially when you combine the old monsters with new monsters like Lalabarina and new Udra, then it gives you a great selection that has you fighting more than just, you know, another dragon. Look, I like weird bugs, okay? Not everyone likes dragons, Kevin. Some of us like spiders. And, I don't know, whatever this is? An oil squid? Friday night fun? Plus, the weird ones give way cooler looking armor. I mean, look at this. It's also nice to see the feedback regarding weapon and armor design for World has been heard. Weapon variety is back to being the right mix of bonky and bonkers, while armor has been slimmed down and doesn't look as chunky as it did. That is a really welcome change for me. And speaking of changes, combat sees a few smaller ones to combos, and a new focus system alongside the addition of wounds. Weapon combo changes are either going to have you praising the designers or cursing their names. It depends on which side of the fence you fall as to whether you like or hate the changes. I've had friends tell me they're changing their main weapon for the first time, and some who are just like, no, I love the changes, I'm sticking with Old Faithful. That's a tale as old as time. But when you couple that with the new focus system that allows you to hit or block where you're looking with the camera, then you'll see new options, new combat flows, and new ways to move open up before you. And of course, speaking of opening up, there's the new wound system. Wounds are the gimmick system in Wilds. Every Monster Hunter has one, you know this if you've been here before, and this feels like a welcome addition that is woven into combat. It kind of works like an evolution of the Clutch Claw in a way, with you jumping onto the monster. The Clutch Claw wasn't a dud, but it felt like it broke the flow of the fight. Everything kind of stopped. Wounds, on the other hand, feel more refined and open up opportunities. You're free to stack them up on different body parts throughout your regular attacks and then just pop off when you need to. You can utilize them to stagger or knock down a monster. It's quick, clean, effective, and it gives loot. That's an added bonus. It also adds another layer to the community side. You can leave them up for someone else to deal with, or you can deck yourself out in gear that takes full advantage of them. I know next go round we'll have a different option for whatever this gimmick system is, but honestly, I'd be okay with wounds sticking around for a while. I kind of like them. It's the little things that stack up in this game for me. I'm sure after a few months they're all gonna fade into the background. That's par for the course, you know, new game, shiny, old game, not so much. But those first interactions are a delight. Seeing the food design reach another level is no surprise, especially after we've had Dragon's Dogma 2. But being able to see my character add the chosen ingredients to the pan and cook them, it's a nice touch. And forgive me an indulgence for a second here, won't you? I love menus and load screens that feel like they're part of the game rather than a barrier. You see your character wearing your gear. That gets me. Stood there with your Palico and your Choco Foe on the main menu as your team looks out across the open world of opportunities ahead of you. To use wrestling terminology, that's a cheap pop. And it works. Hey look, it's me! Wilds also has little touches sprinkled into the world itself that help elevate it. Large monster corpses will rot, small monsters will decay to bones. Endemic life will actually look like they're feasting down on it. You don't need to notice all of this if you're rushing from hairy loot pinata A to fire loot pinata B, but it's there, it's around you. It plays alongside new mechanics like time of day and seasons to make Wilds just feel more like an actual world. Throughout Monster Hunter games in the past, you've been tasked with fighting monsters that are a threat to the natural order, having to put things into balance because they are imbalanced in that living, breathing ecosystem. And Wilds feels like the version of that made manifest. It's the closest we've come to seeing it realized as an ecosystem. You have huge, sprawling regions all connected, allowing you to come and go as you please. Time of day and seasons affect which monster and events take place. Pop-up camps for fast travel that can be destroyed by monsters. It's reducing the need to return to that hub. It's keeping you in the world. You even have monster interactions and turf wars running around because, of course, the Chemotrice will set fire to the grass around it as it attacks. That's neat. It all builds up. Members of a choir each adding their own little piece to create a beautiful symphony. Now, I'm a big fan of ideas like airlock tunnels to transition between areas. World of Warcraft did it recently with The War Within. It's not new, but it's a great trick. Seeing Monster Hunter use it as a means to move the player between regions without slamming you into a load screen. Oh, we've come a long way from the days of when there were load screens between numbered areas. My dream Monster Hunter game is one where I have minimal reliance on the hub, no back and forth, and I can just roam around the world with friends, fighting whatever pops up. And Wilds comes pretty damn close to giving me that experience, which is why it gets a 5 out of 5. It's a huge open world to slaughter giant bosses in, wear their skulls like hats, and have a blast with friends. That to me that's top of the gaming mountain. If I had to be petty, if I had to find something to be unhappy about in this game, it would be the fact that they changed the cooking music and the timing when making steaks. It meant that while I was humming the tune in my head to get the timing right, I messed it up and burnt my first steak and I can't remember how long. And that's not okay. Now, I'll remind you, this review is an opinion. That's what reviews are. Now, I loved this, and I hope you do too. But if you bounce off it, that's okay. And if you are going to bounce off it, it's either going to be because you have a hard time with the combat. Learning monster tricks and movesets can be difficult at first, and if that frustrates you, then you may just be out. Changing something you held as important is also a reason. Maybe you're an old player and you don't like some of the new changes. Maybe you feel like the accessibility and new player changes have stepped too far in reducing difficulty. If that is the case, I'll remind you that the most fun difficult fights tend to get added post-release, so they might still be there. You don't know yet. And if you're a new player and you're intimidated by jumping into this kind of game, you don't need to be concerned about that. The SOS Flare system in Wilds allows you to have either NPC or players help you out, and you can choose which one you want, so you can have only NPCs if that is your wish. The community, though, for Monster Hunter is incredibly welcoming for the most part to new players. They love having people come in, discover this series, and seeing them progress and succeed, and sharing those stories. And there are many places for you to be able to go to find players willing to help you out with your quests, or just hang out and chat about the game, like our Discord down below. Monster Hunter Wilds carries a beast of a price tag at £60 or $70. But as a blessing, there is no early access in the premium bundles. To discuss our playtime or achievement count at the end of this review wouldn't serve any purpose, so we're not going to include it. Monster Hunter is a long-term game. It's easily worth the price of admission, and you'll be tracking down those achievements that are going to keep you busy as well. You got to get all those crowns. Every so often, a game comes along that feels tailor-made for you. And for me, that's Monster Hunter Wilds. A game that has minimal flaws, builds upon the legacy of the series, the feedback from world and users both of these things to soar to incredible heights. It's got improved armor sets and weapon design, stylish combat, nostalgia and newcomers in equal doses for monster variety. Monster Hunter Wilds is a must-buy for fans of the franchise, and with post-launch content already being talked about, plus the inevitable Master Rank expansion way off in the distance. It's only the beginning of this grand adventure.